My entitled manager tries to force me and my coworkers to stay at our job longer than our overtime would allow. And after dealing with her awful attitude, my coworkers and I decided to get some revenge by leaving exactly at 12 hours, leaving this manager on the hook to explain exactly why we couldn't finish. And I've never felt better about getting back at somebody in my life. Here's what happened. So this happened a few years ago where I was working for a company doing special projects that had to do with building certain products. One Friday evening, I get a call from the CFO who liked playing at project management sometimes. Now, mind you, this guy never called me before, and I didn't even know he had my number, so I was really confused. Anyways, he tells me there's been a huge mess up in a project, and I asked him if it was a project that I was involved in. He said, no, it had nothing to do with me. We just desperately need people to come in on Saturday and Sunday and work this because this project needs to be delivered to the customer on Monday morning. He then extends the offer and asked me if I would be able to show up. So I told him sure, I would help out. For reference, in this company, any work on Saturday or Sunday was considered overtime from the first minute, and the overtime rate was very good. He told me that I would be joined by 5 of my colleagues, and almost all of them were a delight to work with, as well as one more person that is a colleague, but has all the information regarding this project, so she would be the leader and tell us what needs to be done. Let's call her wannabe genius boss lady. And I say this in a cynical way, of course. She is not in any way, shape, or form a genius. Everybody working on this project has at least 3 years of experience in the company. Some of them even have more than 10 years of experience, so there wasn't any need for a babysitter. And trust me, this fact will matter later for the story. Saturday morning rolls around and I get to the location. We all meet up and have some coffee, as well as some homemade cookies that my wife made for us. That's when the genius boss lady comes in, whom I will refer to as Genius from here on out. She asks us to gather around and explains that this project was done wrong from the get-go. The company also spent hundreds of man-hours on it, and it was still all done wrong. So the 5 of us, in 2 days of work, not only have to disassemble everything that was done, but redo it from scratch in the correct manner, which not only involved putting it back together, but also refabricating parts that were done wrong. She then goes on to say the following: I'm the boss and you have to do what I say. I have all the schematics in my head, and if you don't know something, ask me, and I will tell you how to do it. We all just kind of looked at each other with a puzzled look, but just ended up shrugging our shoulders. Then she very quickly, and I mean quickly, laid down some rules that she wants us to follow. It was stupid things that would just interfere with our jobs, but no one actually caught all of them. So we just get to work. Like I said, we are all experienced. We work in another facility that the company owns, and we were brought in especially to fix this mess up. All throughout the job, our genius boss does nothing except get in our way, ask us stupid questions, drink lots of coffee and take smoking breaks, treat people badly, and make stupid rules as she goes. At some point, the CFO comes in and starts talking to me, and in the conversation, he says these words: no matter what, no one works overtime. No more than 12 hours a day, no matter what. Now, as a reference, because it's a Saturday, the rules allow us to work up to 12 hours, but more than that, and the company could get fined. Well, when Genius heard that, she promises the CFO that the job will be done no matter what within the 2 days of 12 hours. Saturday's work is done after 12 hours, and we all say goodbye and then we leave. Coming back the next day, we get to work again, with her making the atmosphere worse and worse by the minute, not trusting us when we say we're gonna do something, constantly hovering over us, and generally just being a nuisance. As the day goes, we can see that we are not going to make it on time, and we try to tell her that, but she is adamant that this will be done on time. I tried to explain to her a few times that seeing how much work there is, and her insisting we do not use automated tools, it is simply not going to be possible to finish this in the 5 to 6 hours that we have left. But you know what? She won't hear any of it. She says the job will be done. I'm thinking to myself, okay, whatever, dude. I'm just gonna do what I can since you won't listen. 1 hour before the end of the day comes around, and we have all been working for 11 hours straight. It's right then that Genius finally realizes this isn't going to work, so she calls the real project manager, which just so happens to be her friend, and starts talking to him. I hear her talking on the phone, and she is seriously blaming us for not working fast enough for whatever, and tells him she promised the CFO to have this done on time, and she just doesn't know what to do now. I'm also assuming at this moment, she was betting on riding this success into a promotion or something like that. She then walks out of the building and continues talking out of earshot. After a few minutes of conversation, she comes back in fired up, telling us to round back up again so she can talk to us. She had a fire in her eyes. She said to us, okay, you, don't leave until this part is done. And then she went all the way down the line, basically saying that to everybody, saying that we should continue doing what we're doing. And then, after telling us we had to finish our part before we could leave, she just walks off. And I'm assuming it was for a coffee or a smoke break. So it was right then that we decided to maliciously comply. Exactly 12 hours after arriving, we all put down our tools and started heading heading out the door. And when we did that, she was shocked. She said to us, "Where do you think you're going?" And that's when we replied by saying, "We're going home. We have been here for 12 hours. But this idiotic boss says, "I told you that none of you leave until your parts are finished and tested." But we responded by saying, "No more than 12 hours no matter what." And then we all walked out. Later on, I found out that she stayed by herself until 4 in the morning to finish it all by herself. But guess what? She simply couldn't do it and ended up having to go home as well. Fast forward, and the project manager friend came in on the morning just to try and help her finish the job. Well, needless to say, the project was late and the customer came in to pick it up and simply was not happy to see it still not packaged and ready to go. And honestly, I'm just so glad that I walked out when I did, because there's no way I was ever gonna stay longer for that stupid manager. Yeah, that lady by the name of Genius in this story is the exact opposite of genius. She's a complete fool. Like seriously, she tried to make you guys work longer than your overtime. And I completely understand the rules of your office. There are some places where if you work longer than the scheduled overtime slot, especially in a single day, they really will get fined and they'll get in a lot of trouble. So for this manager to be like, "Yeah, let's break the law and do whatever we want. Also, you can't leave and you have to do what I say, thanks." Meanwhile, she sits there and does nothing while only having like a smoke and coffee break the entire time. Like seriously, that's so annoying, it's not even funny. And the worst part about it is that she was just trying to use you and your coworkers as some kind of leverage to try and get a raise. Like that's really what this was all about. She didn't care about the project or anything like that. She was just trying to look good for corporate so she could try and have this as leverage for a better paying position. And that, in my opinion, is so unbelievably toxic. It's also really disgusting the fact that she ignored all of the experience in the room. Like, I'm willing to bet that the original poster, as well as their colleagues, didn't get called into this specific project simply out of pure chance and luck. Like, you probably got called in because you're super experienced and you know exactly what you're doing. So for her to be like, "Okay, you gotta follow all of my rules and you have to do exactly as I say," that would seriously drive me up a wall, and I would not want to put up with that in the slightest. So good for you for getting out of there exactly at 12 hours. Knowing your luck, if you did stay longer, there's a good chance you probably would not have been paid past 12 hours. Because seriously, this manager was completely out of line, and she had no business to try and keep you there any longer. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Today, I messed up by nearly getting a bar shut down for a month and fined $30,000, all because I drank alcohol inside of their bar in front of some cops. Here's what happened. Okay, so this happened about an hour ago. I was at a bar in the state of Utah. This particular bar has a third-party company come in and host a poker night every Tuesday. I go and play every so often, and I decided to go tonight. Gambling in Utah is illegal, but somehow they're able to legally have poker nights here in a bar as long as the supposed buy-in isn't actually a buy-in, but instead a tip to be given to the dealers. While I was there, I was seated next to a lady who was brand new to the game and had no idea what she was doing. So I started helping her as best I could without breaking any rules myself. She eventually goes out while I've still got a decent stack. We got along pretty well, and she bought me a drink as a thank you for helping her out. Even though she's gone out and is no longer participating in the poker game, she sticks around and does her own thing in the bar while I'm still playing. At one point, she comes back over to my table and tells me that she has a gift for me, again as a thank you for helping her during the game. She proceeds to place a single-serving bottle of Fireball into my coat pocket. And at this point, I'm thinking that was a super nice gift, and honestly, that was really kind of her. After another 20 minutes or so, I eventually lose all of my chips and I go out as well. I find her at the bar and think it'd be a good idea to drink this bottle of Fireball with her along with a couple friends of hers that were at the bar with her. So I go over and I decide to join them. Now, I had also barely noticed, however, that there were 3 cops in uniform, and they were in the bar about 4 feet away talking to some other people. I have no idea what they were in there for, but I wasn't concerned about them since I'm of age and I'm in a place where drinking is allowed. So I pull out the small bottle of Fireball and I down it right there in front of them. And it's right about then that her and her friends look at me in absolute terror. All I could say to them was, "Wait, what's going on?" One of them goes on to explain that what I had just done was super illegal and that the bar could be shut down for a month and fined $30,000, and that I too could be fined as well. I might have spent the night in jail. They told me to put the bottle back in my pocket and hide it, which is something I did immediately. Somehow, by some miracle, none of the 3 cops within a few feet of us noticed what I had just done. It turns out it's against the law to bring outside liquor into a bar in Utah. Apparently, it's a huge crime to do so. This lady who'd given me the bottle knew it was illegal and had given it to me in secret, thinking that I'd keep it on the down low. And that's how my ignorance nearly got us all in ginormous trouble. Wow, that's a really surprising fact about drinking alcohol in Utah, especially the part about about possibly getting fined $30,000 and possibly going to jail. That sounds really scary, and that could have been really bad if the cops were paying attention. But thankfully, they weren't paying attention at all. It's also crazy to me that this lady didn't try to warn you ahead of time or something like that. Maybe it's just me, but if you're gonna buy somebody some alcohol inside of a bar, she should have probably given him a heads up that he shouldn't drink that right now, as there's literally some cops standing right over there in the corner waiting to bust people for who knows what. Also, it's kind of annoying that the cops were there at the bar. People are there just to have a good time and enjoy their night out. And unless there's any kind of incident actually happening at the bar, it kind of seems like those cops were just fishing around for something to do. And that is super sketchy and seriously not okay in my opinion. So hopefully that situation never occurs in your life ever again. Because if I went to jail for something so frivolous, I also would be incredibly upset. My brother and my mom are being super entitled towards my vacation plans with my fiance. And right now it's really starting to get to me. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my fiance and I have been doing temporary long distance. It's been very hard on me, but I keep telling myself it will be over soon. He's in South Korea and I'm in New York, and he went back home to renew his student visa and he unexpectedly got rejected. He has another interview coming up next weekend, so we're hoping third time is the charm. If that's the case, he'll be here by Christmas. And if not, then we're going to proceed with the K1 fiance visa. We both met with immigration lawyers that advised us that the K1 fiance visa is the best course of action if the student visa doesn't work. The K1 fiance visa will last anywhere from 8 months to a year until he comes back. So we are planning, if all else fails, I'll have off from work December 22nd until January 1st. My fiance is working at a program in the meantime, and the program doesn't end until March. He's very serious about his program, and he seems to love what he's doing. We agreed if I go there during Christmas, that we will spend time together after his program ends around 6 o'clock at night. I don't really mind that, as it means I can spend time with my future mother-in-law and also get the chance to explore South Korea. Then we can spend time after his program and cherish our time together. We are thinking I'll follow my work schedule in South Korea by going in December for a week, and then also in February for a week, as well as April for 2 weeks, June for 1 week, and August I will be there for 3 weeks. Then this cycle will continue until he gets the K1 fiance visa. Well, my brother thinks I'm wasting my time and told me I should tell my fiance that we should go to Europe instead because it's cheaper. I tried to explain to him that my fiance will be busy with his program until March, and I don't mind spending time in South Korea. My fiance comes from a wealthy family, and he insists on paying for all of my flights. My family knows he's wealthy, but my brother thinks that he should be using that money to save for our future. My fiance, on the other hand, thinks the flight prices added up is a small price to pay to be with me. But my brother keeps insisting that the money is a waste if I keep going to South Korea. Now, I understand what he means, but this is something my fiance is set on, and he is so set in his program that he's doing right now. My brother keeps insisting I should tell him to leave the program so that we can go to England or somewhere that's closer and cheaper for me. My fiance thinks that if we go to Europe, it will add up for the hotel, the food, and the flights for both me and him. He feels that if we can stay at his place in South Korea, then we will save the cost for hotel expenses in Europe. And on top of that, eating out in South Korea is not expensive at all. Fast forward, and Thanksgiving was honestly pretty bad. My brother mentioned all of this most of the night and even got my mom worked up, and she finally agreed with him. He kept saying we don't have any concept of money, and I was not about to explain my fiance's financial situation to him. I just told him that it's mine and my fiance's choice to make. Then I heard from my mom that she agrees with my brother and how I'm not being realistic. They would not leave me alone about the topic, and they kept insisting that him and I were not being responsible towards our future finances. My fiance ended up calling me, and I excused myself to answer the call. My brother then said that I need to tell him to try and find a way to meet in Europe or somewhere in Canada instead of South Korea. So I just told him that he's being a pain in the neck, and then I walked away. My fiance noticed that I sounded upset over the phone and asked me what was going on. So I told him exactly what was happening, and he said to me, well, if that's the case, then your brother needs to stop taking a once-a-year vacation to Europe, stop constantly going out with his friends, and stop going to concerts, just so he can plan and focus on his future. And I was so glad that he was basically agreeing and stating that my brother needs to mind his own business. I just don't know what to do. I don't expect him to understand my fiance's situation and how invested he is in his work program. He can't just leave his program to go to Europe for a week. It's like you can't just leave a job for a week to go on vacation and expect to have a job when you come back. It's not realistic, and it would be so unfair for him. I also wish my brother would let it go the first time around and not try and get my mom involved. I mean, I can tell that he does it on purpose. I would love to spend my vacation time in South Korea. I find that it's very important to learn about his culture and spend time in his country. I'm sure it will be great to spend time in Europe, but South Korea is his country, and it's very important to the both of us. I would also love to spend spend time with my future in-laws. So honestly, I just don't know if maybe my brother is making a good point, or if maybe he should just mind his own business. What should I do? I think you hit the nail on the head when you said that your brother needs to mind his own business. Like seriously, why does he and your mom have an opinion suddenly about what you're doing with your fiance? Like he's either super jealous that your fiance is loaded or something like that, or he just doesn't like the fact that you're going overseas more than him. Either way, this sounds like a really awful way to treat somebody, and it's seriously not fair for you to be treated this way. Like you know the specifics about your situation with your fiance. You also know that your fiance is not hurting for money. So for him to be acting like, oh man, you need a plan for your future, it's like seriously, your brother needs to shut up and go touch some grass. He is literally only causing problems just to do that, to cause problems and just be a hindrance in your life. And he's acting in such a way that a younger brother would act when they're just being super annoying. And you know what? I actually just had this thought. I bet your brother just wants you to go to Europe with your fiance so that he can try and convince your fiance to let him come along one of those times. I mean, your fiance did say that your brother goes to Europe like what, once a year? I bet you he's trying to lead you over to Europe so that he can try and catch a flight over there himself. But regardless, I think your brother's being an idiot and he seriously just needs to shut his mouth and mind his business, because what you're doing sounds really sweet. And if I was in your shoes, I would want to be over there as well. I went to my girlfriend's parents' house for Thanksgiving and everything went horribly wrong after her father confronted me about being a teacher. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So we've been dating for over a year and I've met her parents a few times, but it was just for things like dinners, nothing really too serious. They live 4 hours from us, and this was going to be the first holiday we spent together. It was going to be her parents, her younger brother, and her younger sister. We drove down Thanksgiving morning and we were going to spend the night there and then a few days at a resort. Her parents are blue collar and church going, and I teach high school math. A bit of a cultural difference if you ask me. My girlfriend made me promise not to get into any discussion with her dad on politics or religion, and I was honestly fine with that. I'm not going to change his mind anyways. Her dad never hid the fact that he didn't respect me. He kept making comments about teachers indoctrinating students, as well as Common Core and other nonsense. There was no reason to get into a fight, and I'm sure that's what he wanted. I mostly ignored him, but he never let up. He was being a total jerk. Everybody was incredibly uncomfortable, and her family avoids confrontation with the dad. My girlfriend and her mom tried to change the subject, but they never stood up to him. I was done with his garbage, and I told my girlfriend that she could either say something, or I would be more than happy to. She begged me not to make a scene, so you know what? I didn't. I went upstairs, I packed up, and thanked everybody, and then I left. I told my girlfriend she should stay and get her parents or brother to drive her home, as we do not live together. I went on to the resort and enjoyed my weekend. My girlfriend has been trying to apologize, and when I asked her what she said to her dad when I left, and what he said in response, I come to find out that she never even confronted him, and he never took responsibility. It sounds like he continued to insult me after I left, and I've never seen her so avoidant. I mean, she's only ever like that around her dad. Her only solution seems to hope that he'll eventually lighten up. So do I tell her to stop being afraid of her dad? Do I confront him and put him on blast? Or is this a learning experience that we're just not compatible? What should I do? The way that dad was talking to you was so inappropriate. Here you are trying to enjoy Thanksgiving dinner, and her dad's like, yep, I'm gonna be a jerk. Let's talk about why teachers are evil. Like, what are you doing, buddy? Can you not put that all to the side and be like, hey, let's just enjoy dinner. Let's try and have some kind of like good time and enjoy ourselves. But of course, he couldn't do that. And that is seriously such a shame. It was also, in my opinion, really smart that you didn't get involved and like try and confront him in some kind of way, because I really don't think that would have done anything to help you. It would have made the situation a lot worse, and I seriously just don't think that that situation would ever end up in your favor. It's also really sad to see that your girlfriend couldn't stand up to him and say, hey, don't talk to my boyfriend like that. And I really do believe that if she doesn't do this now, then she is definitely going to allow that to happen if you two ever decide to get married. So really, if I was in your shoes, I would definitely have a talk with her. I would explain why this was so upsetting and how disappointing it is that she didn't even bother to stand up for you, because the way her dad was talking to you was so inappropriate, and you did not deserve that in the slightest. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you want some chill music to put on in the background, check out Easy Mode. If you like Am I the Jerk, subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.